Or yeah, you have to put down all the stuff. Yeah. When you need them, you don't. For the first section, you will just need.
All right, it looks like we've gone live, and hopefully people start joining. I know it's a bit of a stretch. Let me double check my audio. I want to double check my audio to make sure that it's configured correctly, at least from my standpoint. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cutaway Security ICS Friday Infosec chat for July 1st, 2022. We are live from Munich, Germany at the ICS or SANS ICS. It's not really a summit, but it's a training event. And we've got a lot of students from all over Europe and, particularly Germany, but also different countries throughout the EU. And it's been really exciting to not only see all of the students and participate both in person and online, but also see all of the SANS instructors that I haven't seen a lot. So here with Jason Deely and Dean Parsons. Jason's teaching the ICS 612 class. Dean's teaching the ICS 515, and there's just a bunch of other instructors here as well, just providing training. So good to interact, good to see everybody, like I said, and having a lot of fun. If you're joining us to the stream, if you made it, I know I pushed it out this morning, a little bit different time, basically starting at 5:30 here. We finished up the class about 15 minutes ago. I had to rush to get everything set up, and we are just getting on online for that. But and actually, we're going to be going right up until the time that they come into this room. They're using this room for net wars, so we're eventually we're going to probably see Dee Parsons jump in here and try setting up. But we'll handle that as it comes. We should be wrapping up by the time he needs to set up and get things started. If you are joining us, if you are jumping on and joining us via YouTube or via LinkedIn, it is good to see you. I'm hoping that you'll say hi in the comments and let us know if you have any questions or like to talk about some of the things you're working on this week from the Cutaway Security activities. As like I said, ICS 410 had a good number of students here, 20 students. So that's the largest class I've had in a long time, and extremely knowledgeable. Probably the biggest difference that I've heard, because it's about even distribution associated with people that are coming from the IT side, information security side, and the control network side. What I'm actually surprised about the for the attendees is that we have quite a few security operations center analysts here in the class. And so when we got to some of the logging and we started talking about the logging events and incident response and some of those things, I saw a lot of head nodding. We answered a lot of questions and got a lot of input from the class, which is always good. I mean, one of my favorite parts of doing the training is that as people, obviously people are going to ask questions. But what's good about this is students start talking about what has been effective for them. When we start talking about solutions or different ways to approach things, students will provide input because they realize that they do have to have it, or I mean that's important to other individuals. So yeah, it's been really good. What we're doing now, what we're doing next is Grid Net Wars. We did start that. Grid Net Wars is like Net Wars, except that it's specifically designed for control environments. In other words, all of the different levels actually are things that are associated with control networks. Students are looking things up. They're looking through PCAPs, trying to identify activity. All of those PCAPs have some type of control network consideration, whether it's malware or whether it's management interface communications, or they're looking up things associated with malware campaigns or attacks on critical infrastructure or OT environments. They have that. So it's good turnout. I mean, we actually filled up this classroom. We doubled it up, so we probably had between 40 and 50 people in here. Some people going in and out for Grid Networks. That was not surprising. It's just good to see it. In other words, we've got people back. They're coming back. They're willing to get close, and interact with each other, and all for the opportunity to learn. We had a good distribution of skill sets last night. I mean, I sat with a lot of people and answered questions for people that have experienced GridNet, or I mean, Net Wars, and were familiar with it and got pretty far. But we also had people that have never used Wireshark before, and so this is the opportunity to sit down with them and demonstrate some of the common skill sets for doing those analysis, and just to search for different artifacts, telling people, actually demonstrating and showing people how to be effective for some of these skill sets. uh, I think it's valuable, and you can see the look on their faces when they actually were able to solve things and using those skills. So it's the whole teach a person to fish rather than giving them a fish. That's the approach, and they understood that. So we'll be doing that tonight. It's like I said, they're setting that up. So that's what we've been doing this week, from in Cutaway Security standpoint, and myself. Actually, I'm about 7 hours ahead of Texas. So like while you're coming back online, obviously, so is my family. Keeping up with them has been a challenge, but I'll be home in Texas in a couple days, and get to see them and hang out with them. Obviously, coming back around to the other projects as well. So we'll see what's going on there. Let's see. So topics for today. If you do have a topic, if you are joining us online, on LinkedIn or YouTube, uh, let us know any comments. Say hello, and we can talk about what you're doing this week, any challenges that you're having. So some of the things that I wanted to talk about to kind of extend this conversation a little bit. What's been a lot of fun here in Germany is that since I'm on that reverse schedule, I'm actually getting up at 5 o'clock, getting up, between 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning, which allows me to go, for a short kind of walk, run, do between 4 and 5 miles, and listen to different podcasts and music and so forth. And I was able to pick up on that the new Cyber Wire podcast, The Control Loop, which is put out there by the CyberWire team in conjunction with the Dragos team, meaning that they're doing interviews with some of the Dragos team members and getting some input from them, but certainly they're not limiting who they're interviewing and who they're talking to people. Tomcat, hey, thanks for joining. Thanks for jumping on and talking to us. Let us know if you have any questions. I appreciate you getting on here and helping to make this a little bit more enjoyable. So thanks for jumping on. If you have a question or some input, please let us know. That's what we're here to do. Other than that, I'm just going to talk about some of the topics that are in an agenda that we see there. So I did want to bring up the CyberWire Control Loop podcast, in case that's helpful to any of you. It's they're covering topics around OT. They're being a little bit general and basic right now to kind of help to introduce some of the concepts, and that's a necessary step. It's a necessary step to kind of set the page, and eventually they'll get into some more complex topics as they start bringing on other people, and for interviews. As we start seeing additional events going forward, I expect that we're going to see a lot more detailed content from them. So I'm looking forward to that podcast. Listening to it today kind of got my hackles up a little bit. And that is around some of the vulnerability disclosure information that was in there. And certainly the CyberWire team is leading that. They're just reading from the vulnerability reports and outputting that as it's written. But the way some of it's reading is really associated with the I don't want to call it fear mongering, because they're accurate in their statements associated with what's wrong with what the vulnerability is for the device and what it is doing within the control environment. But it's just the way that the media can pick it up. It's written that the vulnerability is exploitable. Does not require any authentication. Threat actors with access to that device can do anything they want, which would have a negative impact on the control of the environment, leading to fires and catastrophic failures. And while, yes, that's true, and it's understandable, there's no really caveat around the actual implementation and what it takes to do that exploit. So even though the exploit is um, designated as with a CVSS score of 10, meaning that you can do it remotely, it does not require any authentication. You have full access and can take action. It's not providing any context and information about the environment around the confiscating controls. It doesn't say anything about the fact that the threat actors need to have almost physical access in some cases to that network infrastructure. Certainly they can have remote access, but that remote access is going to have to be either going through a corporate environment, or it's going to require the compromise of that corporate environment or of the control network compromising remote access capabilities and so forth. And so that is the compensating controls right there. Those are some of the initial compensating controls. Now, certainly if the threat actors can get on access to that, yes, they can interact with that. They're going to be able to interact with a lot of the other different parts of the processes as well. So I do think that some of the verbiage that's used in describing the vulnerabilities actually cause it to seem more serious than it actually is in the implementations. Should the vendors be held accountable to reduce the impact and risk to certain things? Well, certainly. But if the protocol is designed to be clear text for the requirements of the process, if the protocol is designed not to require authentication, by declaring these vulnerabilities, it's not really a vulnerability, it's a design choice for that. It's a selection. Now, certainly, also we have to take it into context. A part of the vulnerability research is does the devices and the capabilities include methodology for or configuration settings to implement security. And I think that's part of the point of some of these things. Some of these vulnerabilities is that there's no way to configure security to reduce the risk to require authentication or encryption. But a lot of times there's a reason why within the control industry, we say these are insecure by design. They're insecure by design for implementation, the implementation requirements. And so in my mind, the consequence, stating a consequence for the access to a device and being able to communicate with that device and interact with the process, the consequences are really associated with the overall implementation of that environment, the architecture, and so that in my mind goes to the score for that vulnerability. Unfortunately, you can't do that. You don't know where it's going to be deployed, who's going to be deploying it, and so forth. So so organizations need to understand how to limit or how to reevaluate the CVSS scores, and so that it's accurate within their environment. So that's kind of my soapbox about the vulnerability disclosure and consequence reporting of the vernacular that's used in those instances. And you really hear it in that CyberWire control loop. I mean, it sounds like these vulnerabilities are devastating when actually, yeah, the threat actor gets on there, it is, but there's compensating controls to prevent access to that, typically in these organizations. So I like to see how it'll be interesting how this is going to play out moving forward. It'll also be interesting to see how people talk about this. Like when I get back on some of the discords and some of the Slack channels, and can back in the States where I can speak to some of the people on the same time zone about their thoughts around this as well. The other thing I liked about the most recent uh, uh, CyberWire Control Loop podcast is they identified the fact that CISA has kind of initiated the release of the CISA tabletop exercise packages or CTEP. And while I haven't had an opportunity to look at this, the description from the podcast was that CISA has released playbooks for about 100 incident response tabletops, meaning that you have playbooks for the person that's leading the tabletop. You also have playbooks for individuals that are involved in the tabletops, so that they can, so that the tabletop exercise is organized, and that you have scenarios that are common to IT environments, control environments, and you can facilitate that conversation much better. And this is the best way to do it. So I'll be sitting. These are freely available. You can download them. I didn't want to. I made sure that I had the proper name there because I looked that up right before the podcast, and or right before the stream. So you can just go out to CISA site. You can Google CISA CTEP, CTEP, or you can also type in tabletop exercise packages, and it should take you straight there. So your environment, if you're wondering how to do this a little bit better, I'm wondering how to do this within some organizations or some way that I can help add value. So I will definitely be reading this and working this into my processes as well. So I encourage you to take a look and provide CISA with some feedback around these things. These should have been developed by some of the industry professionals. I wouldn't be surprised if I recognize some names, if there's some attribution in there, and that you should be recognizing some of the individuals that put this time and effort into this. I think it's going to be awesome as long as you're implementing it. Okay, some other things that's going on this week. Well, but I've got those 2 bullet points that are another frustration for me this week. So if you haven't seen it, the Iranian steel company was possibly attacked, and the threat actors initiated a cybersecurity attack where they caused catastrophic failure into their process, meaning that they dumped a bunch of hot metal onto the factory floor. Now, whether or not this is actually true, I have no idea. Like, I couldn't find at this time, I couldn't find any validation that this was actually a cybersecurity event and not just a normal plant accident. But apparently there was an account on Twitter, and you can go find that. I'll allow you to find it yourself. I don't want to kind of promote that behavior, because even if you are, nobody should be going after these types of environments. Whether or not you're a hacktivist group, whether or not you're working as a nation state threat actor group, because you're trying to push your political agenda or force people to do something, you should not be attacking these processes like this. It's this is not a can of worms that we really want to go down, and unfortunately, this is we should expect to see more of these types of events. So I'm outraged by the fact that somebody actually, if this was an actual attack, that somebody actually did this. They put lives at risk. A part of the statement was, "We made sure we did this at a safe time." Well, if you watch the video, you'll see people walking right by the hot steel right before it's dumped onto the floor. So people were at risk, people were at danger. There is no vision into other areas that are below the equipment that was affected. And it's very likely somebody could have been injured or killed. Molten steel is not a fun time. All right. Additionally, that portion of the plant is going to be offline for a significant amount of time. And while you might be affecting the government or some organization, ultimately what you're doing is you're putting operators and engineers potentially out of a job for a while. If the plant goes down, they can't work. All right, who's going to feed their kids? If the area is already depressed as far as jobs go, and these people have a good job, what are they going to do now? They're going to go get another steel mill? More than likely not. Do they have to wait for a month to that part of the process to get up and running? Some of them will have jobs fixing it, but other people are going to be out of work, which is just a disappointment, just for the fact that somebody wanted to make a point. Okay, so I don't approve of this type of activity. And another good example of it is the uh, there was another event, and where it's listed there in that last bullet point. Lithuania Railway and other critical other infrastructure was attacked, and I put in there possibly attacked because we don't because attribution is difficult, but the stuff that I found online is accusing Russia of attacking this infrastructure. If you find the report, and I'll let you find it on your own, they're not only attacking railways, they're attacking other businesses and critical infrastructure within Lithuania. Okay. And that's all of because of the political decisions that they've done associated with the current efforts or current situation between Russia and Ukraine. Well, I mean, while this is a political driver, this is how you can push your agenda. It's unfortunate that governments are telling their information security teams to go after this type of infrastructure because it is affecting lives. It's affecting lives for no reason. Now I mean, you can argue the political aspect of it, but we should be more adult than this. All right. And once again, my personal opinion, I'm kind of motivated by the fact that we need to be securing physical infrastructure and not attacking it. Of course, I'm not an operational Marine anymore. As a Marine, use all your weapon systems that you can. But still, I don't want to support this type of activity. I think it's inconsistent, like with the behavior that we want to promote within the world. So, whoever's going after the Iranian steel factory, you shouldn't have done it, and you should leave well enough alone. Russia should be leaving critical infrastructure in other governments. Well, you know, soapbox, like I hop off the soapbox, right? Uh, you know, yeah, and this is important. I think it's important to talk about these things. I really would like to hear your comments, or I can't wait till I can talk to people around this. about this, about attacking critical infrastructure for political agendas, and potentially to does it actually reduce uh, consequences for actual military attacks and so forth? I don't know. That's for smarter people than me, but I can't wait till I can have that conversations with people that understand that a little bit better. Um, we are going to see, security within our control environments. It's just going to become more and more important as we can see from this. It's not going to go away. And as a matter of fact, as we are disclosing these vulnerabilities and helping people understand the consequences from it, threat actor groups, criminal groups are going to start leveraging that as they can, planning their attack and attacking critical infrastructure and other businesses so that they can make money. It's unfortunate, but that's what we're going to see. Hopefully, we can be working with teams to improve the architecture and remote access to these environments to prevent the exploitation of that. Remember, I'm always going to advocate prevention, detection, and response. So we should be doing all of those together. Okay. Right now, I'm not seeing anybody asking any questions online, whether you're joining us in LinkedIn or you're joining us on YouTube. Tomcat jumped in. It looks like he's jumped back out. I really appreciate your time. If you're watching this afterwards, I think that that's awesome. I hope that you gained something out of this quick conversation. I look forward to any comments that you have, whether you're putting it into LinkedIn or you're putting it into YouTube. I monitor for it. So if you have a thought on what we talked about here, wording of vulnerabilities and consequences, the fact that different groups are attacking critical infrastructure or dangerous infrastructure to prove a point or push a political agenda. If you have a comment about that, please leave it in the comments and I'll respond. And I look forward to you jumping on the streams at some point and we can talk about those situations. But other than that, I think we've kind of run the full 30 minutes. Not quite 30 minutes. We've got a few minutes, but I think we've exhausted the topic. So if you're joining us and listening to us later, I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Let us know what topics you'd like to talk about. Let us know if you want to jump on here and talk about your week and what your challenges were, ask questions, provide input to other people. That's what we're looking for on this channel. And thanks for showing up and helping be involved. So everybody have a great week. We will talk to you next week. So this concludes this edition of the Cutaway Security ICS Friday Infosec Chat. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Bye.